In the beginning of the movie, interviews introduce the cast and crew of The Truman Show. Christof, the show's creator, discusses his goal of capturing Truman's genuine emotions to engage the audience tired of fake feelings. Truman Burbank stars in this reality TV show, broadcast worldwide 24/7 from a massive studio filled with hidden cameras. Meryl, another cast member, feels her life blurs between public spectacle and private reality due to constant surveillance. Marlon emphasizes the show's authenticity, insisting everything is real. Truman, unaware his life is scripted, faces a mysterious airplane part falling near him one day. Meanwhile, in Sea Haven, the show's simulated island, actors subtly promote products to boost show revenue. Truman heads to his insurance job, attempts to contact Sylvia, and reluctantly agrees to meet a client. Later, while gardening, Meryl advertises a kitchen gadget, and during a night of golf and beers with Marlon, Truman shares his desire to quit his job and leave Sea Haven, but Marlon urges him to stay. Truman confides in Marlon about his dream to escape to the Fiji Islands, despite the financial challenges. He recalls his father's tragic death at sea during a storm when Truman was young. Truman's decision to keep sailing forward against his father's advice to turn back left a lasting fear of water. Caught in a sudden rainstorm one day, Truman, soaked and contemplative, proposes to Meryl that they travel and explore, but she focuses on their financial responsibilities and her desire for a baby, disappointing Truman. The next day, Truman encounters a homeless man who resembles his deceased father. Desperate to reconnect, Truman searches for him, but fails. He confides in his mother, Angela, who dismisses his belief, attributing it to his longing for his father and indirectly blaming him for the tragedy. Distraught, Truman retreats to his basement, where he looks through old photos, including one of his lost love, while Meryl interrupts with yet another advertisement, leaving Truman bewildered. Viewers watching The Truman Show realize the creator erased Sylvia but couldn't erase her memory. The show flashes back to Truman's college days, where he fell for Sylvia, an extra on the show. Despite Truman's interest, the producers steered him towards Meryl. In a library encounter, Truman and Sylvia are drawn to each other, but Sylvia reveals they can't talk freely due to surveillance. Evading cameras, they share a heartfelt moment at the seaside, but a fake father intervenes, claiming Sylvia is delusional and whisking her away after she reveals Truman's life is manipulated. Sylvia urges Truman to find her and exposes the truth before leaving. Truman, longing to reunite, seeks her and plans to move to Fiji, where Sylvia's family supposedly relocated. On TV, Sylvia watches Truman piece together memories of her, moved by his dedication despite their separation. The following day, Truman becomes suspicious when he tunes into a radio station describing his exact movements. Perplexed, he starts observing his surroundings more closely, noticing oddities that unsettle him. Unable to perfectly predict Truman's reactions, the show's creator, Christof, struggles to maintain control as Truman's behavior disrupts the carefully orchestrated environment of Sea Haven. Feeling followed, Truman confides in Marlon at his store, sharing his belief that his father might still be alive since no body was found. Truman explains how his unpredictability triggers strange events around him. Marlon dismisses Truman's fears as paranoia and declines Truman's invitation to leave town together. Later that night, while looking through his family album with his mother and wife, Truman's mother hints about wanting a grandchild. After Sylvia and Angela leave, Truman notices Meryl's crossed fingers in their wedding photo, adding to his confusion. The next morning, Truman secretly follows Meryl to the hospital, where she claims to perform surgery. Despite obstacles, Truman sneaks in to observe her, questioning her actions. Meryl, cornered, feigns the surgery to convince Truman. Determined to escape, Truman visits a travel agency to book a flight to Fiji. Truman learns there's no immediate flight to Fiji, so he boards a bus that conveniently breaks down. When Meryl returns, Truman shows her patterns of predictable movements, upset by the controlled environment. Meryl suggests saving for a few months before leaving, but Truman insists on leaving immediately, locking her in the car. Blocked from leaving Sea Haven, Truman decides on a spontaneous road trip to New Orleans. Suddenly, all obstacles clear, and they approach a bridge over water. Despite his fear of water, Truman forces Meryl to steer, and they cross, only to be halted by an emergency team due to a gas leak. Truman notices being addressed by name and tries to escape, but is caught. Police return them home, leaving Truman tense. Meryl, in an attempt to distract, advertises a product, confirming Truman's suspicions. He confronts her with a knife, and Meryl breaks character, frightened. Marlon intervenes, calming Truman. Later that night, Truman confides in Marlon, feeling the world revolves around him, seeking understanding. Marlon tries to dissuade Truman, reminiscing about their childhood, but it becomes clear Christoph is manipulating Marlon's words. Marlon assures Truman of his honesty, even in a world of deception. Suddenly, Marlon reintroduces Truman to his dead father, Kirk, sent by Christoph to manipulate Truman's emotions. Overwhelmed, Truman tearfully embraces his father, a scene gripping the audience and boosting show ratings. Behind the scenes, Sylvia, ousted from the show, agonizes over Truman's exploitation. In an exclusive interview, Christoph reveals the Truman Show's 30-year history of dealing with outside interference. Kirk's infiltration sparks a crisis, prompting Christoph to reintroduce him to manipulate Truman back into complacency. Christoph details his methods to confine Truman on the island, using manufactured dangers and promoting the virtues of staying put. He justifies Kirk's 22-year absence as amnesia, deflecting questions about surveillance with over 5,000 cameras monitoring Truman's life since conception, stemming from an unplanned pregnancy. Sylvia boldly calls out Christoph for exploiting Truman's life without his consent, rallying support for the Free Truman campaign after her expulsion from the show. In response, Christoph announces plans for Meryl to call off her marriage on air, introducing a new love interest for Truman to revive ratings. Meanwhile, Truman settles back into his routine, but starts sleeping in his basement. At work, he meets Vivian, introduced to spark a romantic subplot. One night, Christoph notices Truman's changed sleeping position, learning Truman's been in the basement since Meryl left, evading clear camera view at night. Concerned, Christoph sends Marlon to check on Truman, discovering Truman has escaped through a tunnel in his basement, inadvertently broadcasted live. Christoph halts the show for the first time, chaos erupting as extras search for Truman. Failing to locate him, Christoph disrupts the day-night cycle to aid the search, desperate to find Truman. Worried by rumors of Truman's death, show organizers face pressure from contractors seeking to withdraw their investments. Christoph realizes he hasn't been monitoring the sea and quickly spots Truman sailing away from Sea Haven, having conquered his fear of water. Resuming the broadcast, Christoph captivates the audience with Truman's daring escape attempt, much to Sylvia's delight. Unable to intercept Truman with a ferry, Christoph manipulates the weather program to summon a storm over Truman's boat, hoping to force his return. Despite Truman's defiance, Christoph escalates the storm, pushing Truman to the brink of drowning. Against the team's hesitation, Christoph intensifies the tempest in a desperate bid to overturn Truman's boat, but Truman refuses to surrender. Truman's boat crashes into the set's wall, prompting him to repeatedly collide with it until he discovers a staircase near an exit door. Opening the door, Christoph addresses Truman via speaker, revealing the truth about his fabricated life and the show. Overwhelmed, Truman prepares to leave, but Christoph urges him to stay, warning of the dangers beyond Sea Haven's confines. Truman pauses, reflects, and bids farewell with his signature line, "In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." With that, Truman exits the show to Sylvia's embrace, thrilling the live audience. Devastated, Christoph watches as the show concludes with an image of the open exit door. The audience applauds Truman's escape, but soon their attention turns to the next entertainment choice, moving on from Truman's extraordinary journey.